Now, I'd like to turn to my panel here and ask a few questions. I'd like to get your reaction to the political fallout of the gun vote, and what do you think this? Do you think this will hurt them in the coming election? I want to start with you, Richard. Let's get your reaction.
Well, I think it's very sad that we've come to this particular juncture in our culture where 90% of Americans agree that we should get something done, and yet a couple members of the United States Senate, 5 in particular, which need to pass the bill, decided that they were going to vote not their conscience, but sort of vote the interest of the NRA and interest of the pro-gun advocates. And I think the sad part here is the ramification of their actions are like exactly what you're saying. Poll number, there being a lot of them being crushed in the polls. I think beyond being crushed in the polls, I think this is going to come back up again, and a lot of folks are going to change their votes. One being Kelly Ayotte, who, at a recent town hall, sort of said she's sort of now in favor of background checks, even though she wasn't in favor of background checks before. So on, so on, and so on. And I think the thing to point out there to everybody watching is this is a watered-down version of the bill, and the truth of the matter is that even though this is a step in the right direction, this bill would not have stopped the Newtown shooting. What we need to do is we need to have tougher gun laws, like banning high-capacity magazines, banning assault rifles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a step in the right direction, and this is the step that the NRA agreed with in 1999, even though they don't agree with it right now.
Right. Now, let's open it up to the rest of the panel. What do you guys think? Just feel free to chime in.
Well, that was an excellent point that Richard made about banning high-capacity magazines and assault rifles. In the news today, I just happened to read about a man named James Gilkerson in Middlefield, Ohio, here in my home state. He was pulled over by police, and he tried to gun them down with an AK-47, and the cops killed him, and they found in his car 40-round magazines and a bunch of books about how to make weapons and bombs.
Another one of those books, and I wanted to point this out, another one of those books is actually close-range assault rifle shooting, how to shoot at close range, how to fight at close range with an assault weapon. So that's another one of the books he had in his possession.
That's a perfect example of why we need to ban high-capacity magazines and these high killing machines. And also the background checks. I mean, it should be common sense, and obviously to the common American folk, it is pretty much common sense, even though I happen to run into a lot of people who disagree with this, with the background checks. But, you have to assume that if someone is against background checks, it's probably because they're afraid that they won't pass a background check. Why else would you be against background checks? It's just common sense. Why would you want a violent, convicted criminal to have easy access to weapons?
And I think you make a good point there. I think beyond the whole idea that I don't understand why you wouldn't like background checks. I think the other argument the argument you hear the gun rights folks making is that everybody should have the right to bear arms, and to me that really doesn't make any sense, because I don't understand why you would give criminals or axe murderers or rapists and serial killers access to weapons. And beyond that point, I think we need to have this is a broader conversation that we need to have in this country. This week, I think it was this week or last week, a 5-year-old shot his 2-year-old sister with a My First Rifle kit, which will give you a 22 caliber rifle, and they utilize that. I guess you utilize that to start your shooting career. As a marksman. I don't know why you would need that, but I think it speaks to the culture of violence that we have in this country. And it's sad that the Second Amendment for the pro-gun folks seems to be the only amendment that has no limits, but every other amendment does.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I just want to throw out there that the other bills that were also voted on with the other amendments, that were with the background check bill had also failed, but even if there were no filibuster in place, those bills still would have failed because they didn't even beat the 50-vote threshold. So where does, you got to kind of wonder where we're at when it comes to our thoughts about gun control. because it seems like our Congress is incredibly against any limit to the Second Amendment, even if it makes sense.